I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we'll roll into some of our questions, and then we'll let, this is really cool, all of y'all's session, so please just take it away. And if Noah, if you'd like to kick us off on introducing your farm, who you are.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Noah Shitama, and I have Swallowtail Farm, and so I guess I established the farm in 2009, and it was out right near Alan's place, actually out on 1491 in Alachua at the time, and now we've moved the end of 2020 over to Rochelle. I think some of you guys are familiar with Rochelle, and so that's been a big change, but we really love it over there as well. So, when I first started, I feel like it's always been a CSA farm. I think many of you are familiar with what that is, but CSA is community supported agriculture, and it's basically people have shares of your harvest in a given season, and you can do it in a million different ways, but we always did kind of weekly or bi-weekly pickups from farmers markets, and at some point we were serving about 230 households or something. But now we've changed focus a lot, and more recently we've started a tiny little farm store over in our neck of the woods, right next to John's place, and that's been a whole different experience. But I feel like during this time, we've always done agritourism, has always been a part of what we've done. We had a farm-to-table dinner the very first year that we were farming, and we invited 4 chefs out to cook a meal for like 50 people, and we just set a table out in the middle of the field, and it was, we sold out the dinner, and it was really lovely, and I feel like I was seeing that happening in other places, and really felt like that was a really cool way to bring people out to the farm and familiarize them with what we were doing, but in a really comfortable and delicious way, and I feel like it wasn't really happening in this area at the time that I could tell. So we've done many of those kind of events since, and we used to do 2 kind of seasonal festivals as well. We haven't done that for a minute, but might get back to that. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
There's plenty more to say.
Hi, I'm Heather Boyd. My husband and I own the Bryer Patch in Newberry. We started the Bryer Patch this is our 3rd season, but we live and operate our 400-acre farm. My husband is the 4th generation on the farm in Newberry. His grandfather used to grow peanuts and corn and cattle, and then his dad's generation took over and moved over to commercial beef, cattle, still, and sod. So our Monday through Friday job is sod and cows, and our weekend job is the Bryer Patch, because we're only open on the weekends. So we wanted to start the Bryer Patch basically for my husband and I to be able to buy the farm from the rest of the family and keep it in our family. And also, Newberry is growing rapidly. I don't know if anybody's from Newberry or been out there lately, but it's exploding. I was just having a conversation with the lady at my table. It's like, it's expanding. She's like, you mean exploding? I was like, yeah. So we are really geared. Well, I guess let me tell you what we do. We're a U-pick farm. Our main U-pick crop is strawberries and flowers. We also have started doing some vegetables. We did some winter vegetables, and that took off really well, so we're going to do some fall vegetables. Not a ton, just something to add to give people more things to do when they come out to the farm. And ultimately, we just wanted to create a place where families can bring their children out and their families out to enjoy the wide open spaces. We do the Bryer Patch on about 30 acres of our 400 acres, and we tell people that we have that much. They're just in awe, and a lot of people have never been on a farm or an area that's that large. So it's really neat to share our farm story with everyone that comes out. Let's see, we do fall festivals at our farm as well, so we've been getting ready ever since July to gear up for fall. We've been planting flowers. We're trying to grow some pumpkins. That doesn't work very well in Florida with white flies and all of that, but we're giving it a shot again. We're doing, like I said, some fall vegetables, and then we'll bring in pumpkins from a pumpkin distributor that gets pumpkins from North Carolina, Indiana, those places up there, to pop up a little pumpkin patch. We also have a play paddock, we call it. It's like a playground where we just have a lot of our stuff has been built from stuff that we had at the farm, like old grain wagons, tractor tires, just, I don't know, trying to make it as farm and not commercial as possible. We also do offer a hayride that goes out into our cow pasture so you can see our cows, and we have some ducks in our duck pond. So, and then we do festivals as well. We usually do maybe 2 to 3 festivals a season based on, like, we do a strawberry festival, a pumpkin festival, a sunflower festival, where we bring in craft vendors and food trucks, live music, and yeah, those work really well for us. I may be going off topic, but that's pretty much what we do. I'll hand it over.
My name is Amy, and I'm with Frog Song Organics, and we started our farm in 2011, so just a little after y'all got started. And actually, some of my first farm to agritourism events that I attended here in Alachua County were at Swallowtail. I went to one of the spring festivals, like the only festival I've ever been able to attend until once our farm got going. I could never go to a festival on Saturday. So that was really fun, and I went to one of the farm dinners, and that was really nice too. So we were kind of inspired by that, and I wanted to say that one of the reasons, sometimes people ask me, why did you come to Alachua County to start the farm? Because my husband and I went to University of Florida, and both of us studied agriculture and horticulture, but one of the reasons we actually we left, moved away, and came back was because we thought there actually was a lot of support for local agriculture in this community and in this county, and just seeing, the development, 10, 15 years later, that there's actually conservation money, and we've applied for the ag conservation easement program. So I feel like, maybe we actually chose the right place, because there really is a lot of interest in local food here. So we started with 6 acres as a CSA farm also, and then we've expanded since then, and we're farming on about 60 acres, and we've also expanded our sales. So we sell our own produce that we grow. We also raise pastured hogs that we do rotational grazing. And we also now work with partner growers, so we're purchasing in product from other growers in Florida, as well as going as far as Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina in the summertime to supplement. So we're doing distribution of our own produce and other farms' produce that we buy directly from throughout North and Central Florida. So we do 4 farmers markets a week, including in St. Augustine, Winter Park, Ormond Beach, and here in Gainesville. And one of the reasons that we do the agritourism is actually to allow our customers from those little further out places to come and see where the food's coming from. We regularly get people that travel 2 and 3 hours. We have one couple that comes every event from Sarasota. They're diehards. It's amazing, and it's like we're friends with them now because they've come so many times to come to all the events. But we do get people that visit us at the farmers markets and other places, and they're really excited because if you're living in Central Florida, there's not as many farms. If you're living in more urban area, as you might see up here. So you'll see on your tables, we have a couple of events coming up. We generally have kind of done 3 main festivals every year, 3 bigger events. We have our Roselle Festival, so that's with Roselle hibiscus. If you're familiar with that crop, it's amazing and it grows really well in Florida. And we started that one it was a Heritage Foods grant, I think that was with Santa Fe, they started a Heritage Food Festival event, and then we kept doing it because people really liked it, and we've worked with Florida organic growers and had live music, UPIC, educational stuff. So we do the Roselle Festival. We have done a cane boil the last several years in January. We also grow sugar cane and press our own juice and boil it into syrup. And then in the spring, we do a spring festival, which we've had strawberry U-pick, but then the last couple years, this year we had crop failure and we didn't have any strawberries, but we still had a festival. So that's the main agritourism that we do. We've also done some dinners, and we also recently just built a commercial kitchen on site. So that's really going to make doing agritourism a lot easier because we've built some restrooms and a kitchen, so there's a lot less like schlepping of stuff out to an area that is not really set up for it. So I think that's going to make it a lot easier in the coming years.
Thank you. I'm Alan Hitchcock. I never dreamed I would be in agritourism. 17 years ago, I sold Hitchcock supermarkets and moved out to the farm to retire. We bought a farm that was way bigger than I, and I didn't realize what would come with all that. But anyway, we bought the ranch, and it's about 2,500 acres. And after operating it for a couple of years, at that time, we were losing a lot of money on cows. We were losing money on everything we did, trying to maintain it. And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into here? And then in 2011, my daughter came to me and said, Dad, I would like to get married in the barn. And I said, well, I've never really heard of anybody getting married in the barn, but we had fixed it back up because I was trying to bring the ranch back to its original glory because I had visited there as a kid with my grandfather, and I remembered how nice the sale barn was, and it had gotten run down, and we just started fixing it back up. Anyway, she got married. Then we had several of her friends who got married there. My son was getting out of college, and they said, well, we need to find something to make this place sustainable, or we're going to have to start doing a lot of intensive farming because maintaining 2,500 acres can get to be very expensive. So we transitioned into at that time, and I was so surprised. It just took off, and at that time, there weren't hardly any wedding barns around. We used to get people coming from Orlando and everywhere around, and then people said, we got into that, and then the question came up about, well, is weddings agritourism? And I said, well, I would have never thought they were until I started working at weddings and taking brides out into the cow pasture and getting their pictures made with cows. And we even have cows that we'd trained to come up and smell them. It looked like they were kissing the cow. So it went over that, jumping up on hay bales. We had orphan calves. The little kids at the weddings would go over and bottle feed the calves during the wedding. And people, particularly coming out of the cities that never had farm experiences, they just loved it. So our business really took off, and we started evolving. And then we later had the opportunity to buy some additional property that was on our road, and we bought that, and that's where we came up with Valley View. And we have a farming operation there, but we didn't have a building. So when we built the building there, we made sure we went to the county and the fire marshal and everything. We applied for all appropriate permits from septic tanks to, and a lot of people don't know if you have an event venue and you're using the water from it and you have a well, your well should be inspected. It should be what they classify as a public well, which means you have to test the water. So there's a lot of things involved in all that. And I was seeing all these things. I'm going like, this is all new. So popped up, somebody said, hey, we're thinking about starting the Florida Agritourism Association. So I met with some people, and we started the Florida Agritourism Association. And I started getting educated more and more on all this and all the issues and some of the things that we've been talking about today. And I've been working on that, and it's become a passion of mine, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that after the meeting. In fact, I will tell you, I brought some copies. We developed a program called the Good Neighbor Policy because it's so important for all of us in this business to make sure we're being good neighbors, because if we're not good neighbors, we're going to create unhappy neighbors, and there's nothing to mess your business up quicker than having an angry, unhappy neighbor. So we have suggestions and ways to things that you consider and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be happy to pass that out later. But that's sort of what we do. Let me just finish this part of it by saying we host weddings, but we also host educational conferences and meetings. We actually do educational stuff with IFAS. We do a Hay Day every year where people from the area come out there for educational training on different things like that. We've done cow-calf palpation seminars there. We've done a number of those kinds of things, and we do a lot of fundraisers, and that's one of the things where it does my heart good because I have been blessed in my life in many ways, and it's my way of giving back. But I can tell you by all the different events that we've been able to help people, we've helped so many nonprofit organizations over the last 10 years raise millions and millions of dollars. And I've been able to help some people who come to me for a donation. I said, well, instead of me giving you a donation, let me show you how to have an event and raise money. Instead of me giving them $5,000, they have an event maybe and raise. We do one for Mirror Image out of Gainesville, and they raised, the last 2 years, each one they've raised over $100,000. So that's something that I get great pleasure out of, and I'm happy to be a communication point to you with the Florida Agritourism. If you're not a member, you need to join. We're starting an ambassador program. I think we might have somebody here who has applied to become an ambassador, and that's just going to be so we have people who can answer questions and communicate more. So we'll move on.
Yeah, thank you. And if you haven't figured it out by now, Florida Agritourism Association, I highly recommend, and you've heard it from John, and I've heard it from Hitchcock. I mean, they do an annual conference, and it's a fantastic network across the state of agritourism operators, those who are looking to start out, and those who are, leading the way in the state. And I think rolling into that, I'm flipping this slide, we have a few themes that we wanted to bring some questions around, and I think, we segueing from what all your farms do and your contributions to agriculture and agritourism, and for those in the audience, who may just be, dipping their toe in the way of agritourism, how do you assess your market and decide which agritourism experiences would be the most profitable and impactful for your farm?
I'll start if you want me to. So when you get into this business, you will be approached by a lot of different people to do a lot of different things. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned from them. I have a tendency to want to try to make everybody happy and do everything for everybody. And my son has kind of reined me in a lot, and rightfully so. But as we've gone through this, we've learned when we get ready to take possibly an opportunity, you must consider the nature of the event and just common sense things like, could this be dangerous? What's my liability going to be? What kind of wear and tear is it going to have on my facility? And then what is your true cost? I think one of the biggest mistakes people make in business is not understanding what their true cost is. Because when you get ready to price things or do things like that, understanding your true cost, you have taxes, you have insurance, you have labor costs, you have maintenance, you have all of these things to consider. And when you annualize some of that and you divide it up by your number of events, you need to take that stuff into consideration as you're looking at what you're going to do. And then a really big thing to make sure you're successful is always ask yourself, can we meet the client's expectations? Because I do a lot still. I'll do a lot of showings and communications with guests that come for future clients. And I always try to understand what they really want, and if it's going to work for us. And if it doesn't work for you, don't be afraid to say, I don't think that that's going to work for us. It's going to be too difficult. It's not going to fit into what we do, because again, I have made the mistake of doing that, and it can create problems for you. It can create problems with noise. It can create problems with behavior. And it can create problems for you with damaging your facility. So you need to think about those things.
Yeah, so risk versus reward. So we've mainly focused our all of our festivals around something that we grow. There can be a little bit of risk in that if something isn't ready on time or you get bad weather. Like one year, the Roselle Festival was a little bit late, and the Roselle was looking a little rough because the plants were a little past their prime. So getting that timing just right, or like with the strawberries, I had to be careful not to promote strawberry U-pick. Like, well, we're gonna have a spring festival. There might be some strawberries, to manage people's expectations. We did haul people around on a trailer with hay bales on it a couple years, and then we had kids start to just jump off of it. And we decided that to just not do tractor rides. People really like a hay ride, but we've really tried to focus our tours around and festivals really around agricultural education. And so when we've had vendors approach us that maybe offer things that are fun and at festivals, but don't really have anything to do with agriculture, we've usually turned it down to just keep our events a little bit more simple and a little bit more focused on learning about the crop, learning about organic production, really focused on the food, requiring, if people are coming in as outside vendors, having them utilize things that are grown at our farm and not just, I don't want to bring in a hot dog truck that has nothing to do with our farm, even though it might be fun for attendees. They're really looking for that experience that's connecting them to the land, at least the people that come to our events. They're looking for something a little more specific. And so, yeah, we got rid of the hay rides because we thought about the risk versus reward, and we didn't charge for the hay ride, and we didn't charge really admission, and it cost us a tractor driver. We needed to have somebody qualified to drive the tractor, and then it was also really hard to give a farm tour with the noise of the tractor. So once we did it a couple times, we were this isn't really adding that much value for people, so we just take people on walking tours now, and I have a little headset and a little mic thing, and it makes it to where 30 people can hear what you're saying. People can see more and smell more and touch more when they're walking around. And so we just found that pace and style of activity was a better fit for what we were doing, but it does make it difficult for accessibility. If you have some people that can't walk on any even ground, then that makes it difficult for them to see the whole farm. So it would be great to get some golf carts that are nicer than the ones we have to take people around, but other risk versus reward. Yeah, understanding your costs is a big one. And yeah, there's always unanticipated costs, I feel with events, and you're oh wait, last minute, I need this or that for the event. But yeah, we pretty much do the U-picks, and we'll do different kinds of U-picks. So if, let's say, the strawberries weren't ready, we made onion U-pick available, or pull carrots. And so we just come up with something that we have in season and give people an experience. And usually people are really, they have a great time and they're really happy with it. I think as long as there's bathrooms and water and food, people are usually pretty happy to be out on a farm.
And shade. Risk versus reward. I would say what's worked best for us when adding something new or trying something new, or even when we first got started, was starting on a small scale and to make sure that we could grow strawberries, because we had never grown strawberries before. So, and then once we can do this, we can add some more plants this year, or okay, that was too many plants. We had way too many strawberries during the week left over from U-pick, because we're not a commercial strawberry farm, we're strictly U-pick. So with that, you have to, it's hard to gauge with how much traffic you're going to get and how many people are going to come out and pick, and how much they're going to pick versus how much you're going to have. So that is probably the hardest thing to figure out in your decision-making process, is how much to have. And I would also say starting small and putting the bare minimum inputs into it that you can. And then if it works, vamp it up a little bit more, add more to it. I mean, that's what we've done since we started. We started with just a pole barn and some tents, and that was it. And we've gradually added things. So that would be my suggestion.
Thanks, y'all. I'm gonna do a little, I guess I feel like there's some context here that I'd like to speak to for a second, because I really feel like all you guys are speaking to very practical and super important things, and things that I did not take into consideration early on, for sure. And I've always been a compulsive person who thinks is super, like, I don't know, I have grandiose ideas, like, yeah, trying things that we've never done before. But I feel like from the beginning, I really did feel like it was a question of like viability for the farm and to diversify what we did there. And I remember Jordan Brown gave me a lot of flack for doing anything that was not growing food for a while, and I had to kind of defend those decisions like with him because I just felt like it was clear to me that farming is a hustle to produce food and try to make a livelihood from it. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys do it, but it's really not easy. And I guess I just want to acknowledge that I feel personally that that's just getting harder and harder from what I can tell. And that's probably, I'm guessing that's why a lot of you guys are in this room, is to hold on to your property and find ways to do that. And I feel like that's a really, it brings up really difficult decisions to make. And I feel like that's, I think that's why we're all doing things that we're doing that are agritourism and we're not just head down growing stuff on our farms, is to be able to actually make livelihood from our land and to stay on it. So I guess I just want to acknowledge that part. I feel like it's also just a constantly changing landscape in terms of what is, relevant to people and what they want to do. But I think the main truth is that people need space and beautiful places and good food, and those things are rarer and rarer in a lot of ways, that you can just be in a place that feels peaceful. I mean, that of itself. So I think that's a lot of the upside of having a farm and having land, is that, you can offer that to somebody in a way that is meaningful. I think you have to understand how valuable that of itself is before we get into all this, I think. Because I think we also have a tendency, as farmers, we're traditionally undervalued, like, to the nth degree, like, crazy amount. Just food is so cheap, was. It's not necessarily right now. And I think that what that did was it also cheapened the livelihood and the vocation itself, and scared a lot of people away from doing it. So and I don't know the remedy to that, but I feel like basically we have to also learn what is it that we're offering to people, and why is it valuable to them, and how valuable is it, and not be afraid of asking for that value from people. So I think weddings are a space that obviously people are willing to pay their mortgage, their futures on somehow, and that's a really, I think we're going to be hosting weddings like this fall and in the spring, and I think that's you don't have to really twist people's arm to pay for things around weddings. We all know that, I think. But even just something like, I don't know if you guys have heard of forest bathing, but that's a thing that it's essentially just offering people space to walk around, and to be quiet and enjoy where you are and present. And that's valuable to people, right? That's without feeding and giving them tons of alcohol or anything else, right? So anyway, long story short, I think it's really important to understand how to value what we're offering, how to understand what it is that people are looking for, and not just make assumptions about what traditionally has been valued. So I guess to answer the actual question, maybe, a lot of it too, I think this is not a super practical thing, but I think it ends up being very important, is do you enjoy doing it? Is it something that that you're going to also enjoy the process of, because it's going to be a lot of work, whatever it is, right? And so I think it needs to be sustainable on a spiritual level for yourself, and your partner or your family or everybody, the people around you as well. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you. I think you really touched on a lot of the key points of, we've always said in our department, we've always described like farmers, and they're basically the whole package. You're farming, you're growing, you're operating, whatever that may be. You're also marketing yourself. You're doing the bookkeeping behind the scenes. You're taking care of your family. You're out at events and farmers markets, and the hustle is real, like as you mentioned. And I think that's where agritourism steps in, and that's probably where this all came from, was a need to pivot and navigate with the times and find those diversified incomes and flexing and knowing what your audience and what they're looking for. Trends come and go, especially this day and age. But if you can get that one TikToker on your farm, you're good, probably. But I think for the sake of time, we will move to the next section of questions. And I think and I may not do all questions, again, for the sake of time. I want to have some open Q&A. But I think that from your segue, Noah, I'd like to ask, what are the top investments that have had the greatest return for your agritourism operation?
All right, so I'll jump from like philosophical to the like nuts and bolts if I can. I really feel like facilities are so much of what we're talking about when we're talking about hosting people, and while on the one hand I feel like you can do something like just take walks with people, it also, if you're going to have a lot of people on the farm, then that just means you're going to have bathrooms and comfortable space at some level, and it is an accommodation and parking and all those logistical things are real. And so even just something as simple as if we were going to do farm to table like dining experiences, we early on bought a bunch of folding tables and chairs, and like that of itself is a big piece of being able to sit people down and eat, and then understanding like what it takes to offer chefs a space to cook in, whether it's a pop-up situation or it's your kitchen, which it has been for the last 5 years for us. So I think, ideally, like Amy was talking about, you build something for the purpose. Alan, I know that barn is amazing, and so you do that, and it's a one and done, and you're not popping it up over and over again. And I feel like the pop-up is really, it's kind of like, I went to farmers markets for 15 years, and I'm so happy to have a store now because we don't have to pop the store up over and over again. But yeah, just in terms of, I think that's essentially like, just even basic facility investments have been, that pays off the best, I think.
Thank you.
I would say this isn't monetary, but your time. I mean, it requires a lot of your time if you're an owner operator of your farm, which all of us are. I mean, you spend a lot of time on the farm and off the farm planning, making decisions, growing the crops that you grow. That, like he was saying, farmers, I mean, it's a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week job. I mean, 2 years ago when we had the record freeze at Christmas, my husband spent Christmas watering the strawberries because we use freeze protection overhead so they can survive through the winter. So I would say your time is I don't know, is the top investment that you will put into it for your most profit. And then, structures, we don't really have any structures other than a couple of pole barns, and we have portable restrooms. We would love to have actual structures one day, but we're doing everything. What we make off the farm, we are putting most of it, if not all of it, back into it to grow it. So we just keep adding things, and everything that we add, we do it on a small scale and then make it a little bit better the next year if it does well for us.
I just like to echo exactly what they've said. We did start off with much smaller events and then just grew them over time. But anything, if you can think about what is the action you're going to have to take over and over again at every single event you do, and if it's putting up a tent and you can put up a pole barn instead, which we did in 2020, we constructed a pole barn. just that amount of labor savings of not having people have to put up and take down the tent. And then now I'm having the same guy that built a pole barn, he's gonna help me put up a storage shed for some of our event-related items only, because our team would have to schlep them back and forth, and we would have competition, like for resources, basically, because we do 4 farmers markets a week. 2 of them are both on Saturdays. Saturdays are generally our best turnout days when we've had events. We've tried Sunday, it's just so-so. More people will come out on a Saturday generally. So sometimes we would be like, oh shoot, all of our tables are gonna be at the farmer's market, but we also need tables for this event, and we need to set them up at the same time, and then we're fighting for staffing. Well, we have these people at the market, but we need these people at the farm. And so one of the reasons we actually started our spring festival and we choose the date that we do is because it is the one day that the Winter Park Market is closed because they have an art festival. So that's one of our top markets. And to lose that revenue in the third weekend of March, that's like the peak of part of the peak of the season for Florida. We have to replace that revenue with something. So we said, well, we'll have a festival at our farm, and we've now grown it to the point where at the beginning it was never as big as that market, and now we're starting to approach where it's actually helping replace some of that 1 week of lost revenue. And then, just utilizing all the resources you already have on the farm. So if it's a crop that's already out there, like let's say you're growing cut flowers you're gonna grow flowers that you can cut, you can also book photographers to do photography sessions. We haven't done that, but we've thought about it. And you can use some of the things that you're already doing for crop production and turn them into agritourism destinations and things for people to learn about and do and have activities. And at the end of the day, even if 50 people come out and do you pick carrots for the scale of carrots that we're growing, like we're still going to have enough carrots to sell to our other customers. But all the other people had a great time, and we sold them, and everything worked out. The diversification and being able to hang on to your land by having more streams of income with agritourism. When we thought about how can we expand our revenue stream, we can't really produce any more crops off of our land. We have most of it is cropped or in orchards, and we're also really limited with skilled agricultural labor, access to that, but there's a lot more hospitality labor available in Florida. There's a lot more people that know how to be servers, know how to host events, know how to be friendly, know how to help people have a good time. So we looked at that as an easier place if we were trying to hire more people, that we could more easily find people that could work in that arena than we can find skilled, dedicated farm workers to help us increase production of just row crops. So just thinking about expanding our operation, that was one of the things we took into account. But yeah, invest in facilities if you can, definitely.
So a lot of the same things that everyone has already said, we started with it not ever thinking we were going to do it, and it just kept going, and we kept having to think about all the things we needed to do. So one of the things, our ranch is 2 miles from the highway, and it was a dirt road. So you can start imagining, we started having weddings down there, and if it rained, we had a couple hundred people down there. Well, we had pretty much of a muddy mess. And then, so first thing we did is we had our own version of a road grader, which was kind of a box blade behind a tractor, but we would keep the road up so it, our neighbors didn't fuss too much. But it got to be such a job, we actually approached the county and partnered with them. We paid to have had the road chip sealed, which is a less expensive way of paving, but all of a sudden, instead of my neighbors hating me, they love me. And so the other thing, my wife said was the best thing we ever did, but 2 miles down a dirt road, it's pretty good ways. And then we actually maintain, to this day, we maintain the right-of-way, and we patch all the potholes. We never call the county to do it because, we're using it and we're happy to do it. So that's been a great investment for us. And I want to put another plug in for Florida Agritourism Association. I will tell you, I have learned so much about, liability issues, what I can do, what I can't do, maybe what I should be doing. It's just a great organization. It's a great investment. I've invested a lot more time than I have money into it, but I have gotten so much back. And I am still very active in that, and I think it's a great thing for everyone to make sure you're a part of.
Thank you. And I think we'll move on to our next section too, because I do want to make sure we have time for questions and conversation. I think truly the next best question coming off of that is, how do you manage your staff, your volunteers, interns that you bring in, during your high traffic events, your U-Pick days, weddings, and your festivals, while still maintaining like a quality guest experience? Are you training them up? Are you educating them on your farm with talking points? How do you manage your staffing?
So some of that was easier for me because I grew up in the grocery business. And one time before I sold, we were managing 850-something people. So I had a lot of experience in customer service and how important it was. We had a connection with a local school, and they had a lot of the kids that first started working with us at weddings that were in the student government, and we knew that they were kids that were responsible and they wanted to learn, and we started working with kids like that. As we grew, we found out the University of Florida has an event management program, and we've had several interns that have come and worked with us to help manage events and stuff like that. So that's been a great thing for us. But I can't emphasize enough to you how important your staff is, because the staff is a reflection of you. And you have to make sure that you hire the right people, you communicate your expectations, you continue to coach people up. I'm a big believer in positive reinforcement, so the more times you catch people doing things correctly and praise them for it, the more you're going to get that kind of behavior. So it's a very, very important part. It's probably a thing that people don't invest enough of their money and time into because they have so many other things. But when you start doing a lot of business and you're not able to handle everything or every person that comes through, you got to make sure that you have that right. And I guess that's the biggest thing is you just got to make sure that whatever you do, that you and all your people realize you've got to deliver a great experience, whether it's picking vegetables or eating food or whatever the case may be. I can tell you that at a lot of weddings, expectations are very high, and sometimes people are on edge with their nerves, and you have to know how to handle those situations. So there's a lot to it, and it's been a journey for us, and we've enjoyed learning about it.
For us, like I mentioned, we use a lot of our existing paid staff for our events. So most of the staff that works our events are employees like from other parts of the farm. We also do get some volunteers. Kathy, that's over there. Yeah. Kathy has helped us coordinate some Roselle festivals and also brought in some volunteers and helped coordinate them. So if you can have somebody that is skilled at coordinating and setting up other people to help you with a task, that's really helpful. And then my event team, I have a few people that just particularly like events, and they said, hey, can we actually have like a meeting maybe before the event so we can know what's going on? Because it was always a little bit chaotic, no matter how much planning I did in my head and like in a little notebook. Communicating all that to everybody that wants to help you, and having things set up and ready so that when they show up, you're actually making the best use of the resources that people have given their time and a commitment to be there that day. So making the best use of that. So having like stations set up and having all the supplies where you need them is really helpful. But yeah, generally we're using the staff that already work with us at farmers markets. And then sometimes some of the best people that we have are people that maybe used to work with us and want to stay involved with the farm, but they can't work all the time, so they'll come out and help just with events. So they have familiarity with the property, where things are. They know, how to welcome people and show them around. But they'll just come in for the day, and we'll, we'll make arrangements for that day, but they're not like regular, everyday staff.
Most of our employees are high school students. College students. A lot of them are family friends, their children. That's honestly been, because we're only open on the weekends, we do host field trips when we're open during the week, and me and my husband and my father-in-law handle that. So our employee numbers are pretty low, which is great because a lot of our stuff it's you pick and it's self-service pretty much. So we have people, employees that are in the front desk area. I wouldn't say it's a desk, it's more like a bar under the barn, but they welcome guests, check them in. If we're charging an admission fee that day, we accept that there, we explain where everything is. So I always have, like when our season is about to begin, we always have an employee meeting. I usually order a bunch of pizza and feed the kids, and they love it. We get to hang out for a little bit and talk about what we're gonna do and the changes that we've made and what we're growing and how much everything is costing. We have a huge chalkboard behind the employees at the bar. So all of our information is up there, what's included, what it costs. And we don't do anything extra, like you pay an admission fee and everything's included besides what you wanna pick. You pay for that afterwards. So we hire a few, usually boys, high school boys, that they're in charge of taking out trash. We have farm animal petting area, so I have a cow, a donkey, some horses, some goats. They're in charge of making sure they're watered, that nobody's doing something to them that they shouldn't be doing. That's about it. It's great for high school kids because they're going to school during the week, and on the weekends, their parents are like, "Hey, you need to make some money. It's some gas money for the week coming up." So it works out great for us.
So I feel like, I think there's so much importance in setting expectations, and you can do that informationally, like by just describing what you're having, like on your website or whatever your ticketing platform is or whatever, or your flyer or whatever. You're kind of creating an idea when you do that, right? Like you're putting an idea out, and that's what people are coming to, is an idea and a place that they have an expectation around. But I feel like I really feel like so much of people's experience is, well, feeding people is always good, right? Like, so on the staff level, we feel like if Kathy or anyone else comes out and volunteers for our dinner events, like we want to feed them the same food that the guests are getting for the meal, and it's really important that we understand how important the food part of it is to the staff. But also, I guess I wanted to say, I think we experience things so impressionistically, just generally, all of us, and even our expectations can kind of fall away if we're in an environment that feels, I don't know, I guess what am I trying to say? Sometimes we'll have these dinners and they're not cheap, right? The tickets to them are not cheap, and the chefs are coming from some fancy restaurant, and we're like, we'll put pressure on ourselves, we'll feel pressure to like have it be this really nice thing, right? But then what I realized often is if I'm relaxed and we are being authentically ourselves and just letting the farm kind of be what it's about and just talking about the things that we believe in and why we're doing it, then that's so much, I don't know, that's so much more important in a way to people's experience than like how the thing is cooked or whatever in the end. And it's not that it's not important how it's cooked, but you know what I'm saying, I guess. So anyway, I guess that's not exactly the question because it's really about staff and volunteers, but I feel like part of that is how happy everybody is that's there and the feeling that's there. So, all of that does have to do with how well informed our staff is about what it is and what they're doing and all those things too on that level. But there's also a feeling involved, I guess, that can kind of allow for I don't know, for a good experience regardless of how many fires happening or coming up, or like there's not a hose that you need for something, in the moment that you need it. But
Yeah, feeding people is important, especially your staff and volunteers, and making sure you save food, like, for them, and that you don't sell it out accidentally. That's important. And then also, as our events have grown, we've really tried to structure it where we have kind of setup shifts and breakdown shifts so that your staff and people that want to be involved and they want to work the event, but they don't want to work the whole event. They still want to be able to enjoy it and hang out and get some of the guest experience. So we've now really tried to, of course, it means you have to find twice as many people because you're splitting up their shift. But if it's going to be a longer day, you're going to have people be happier and hopefully lend to that more positive overall vibe. If you're like, hey, you're doing setup shift and then you're done by the middle of the event, and then you have other people come in at the middle of the event and they help you break it down so that one person, I mean, of course, myself and Kathy, we're there all day, but that most of your team has an ability to actually just kick back and enjoy some portion of the event and be able to be excited about doing it next year and tell people that it was fun. So that's important. And then, just having enough staffing, because probably someone will call out, if you have a team, there's always somebody that can't make it, so.
And just to follow up, high traffic events, yes, have a parking attendant, because cars will come in and park. You'll see all kinds of things, and then people get stuck, or they'll take up half of the parking lot, and then you lose, half of your parking space. So, make sure you have somebody directing traffic and parking.
That's a great idea. I think we have time for like 2 or 3 questions if anybody wants to throw something out there. Which I know there's burning questions out there. Yes. Oh. Yes.
I have a question about insurance. It seems to be the biggest problem that we have. We have livestock, we have people who come in, we educate them about our animals. We got pennies in insurance to cover our animals out there. As soon as our house insurance people found out about having people on their property, they dropped us.
How'd they find out?
Our fault. So we had a heck of a time finding it, now we're keeping our mouth shut.
So the question's about finding insurance, it sounds like, and
Yeah, it's something that people that want to get into this.
yeah, oh yeah,
We did it, and we made that mistake.
yeah.
So we do purchase a liability policy, but I think I'll let Mr. Allen touch on the Florida Agritourism statute as well, since he's part of the Agritourism board, but you also have that coverage as well.
So 2 things. First of all, you have some liability protection if you have the appropriate sign up in front of your business. Now, when I say appropriate, because we had a member who had a sign up, but they didn't have the appropriate sign up, and the lawyers measured the size of the letters, and they have to be, specifically what the statute says. If you don't have that sign up, they lost their liability. Now, the other thing is, at our conference that we just had, there were several insurance companies there that would insure agritourism operations. I don't have the names of them off the top of my head, but I can find them for you. And the other thing I can tell you that we do on, I don't know if you can do this with every guest, but when we do an event, we have a hold harmless agreement that is required to be signed. And then the second thing we do is there are a number of companies. I know one is theeventhelper.com, but you can buy special event insurance for that event. And typically it's not that expensive. It only runs about $1 per guest. So if you have 100 guests, it might be $100. And that gives you an additional layer of protection. And I suggest that you probably meet with your attorney and you put some of this stuff into an LLC so you can have layers of protection with that kind of stuff too. But now I'm getting over in an area that I'm not qualified to be saying a whole lot about. But there are a lot of different things you could do to help protect yourself.
Basically, we've done everything that you said. We
Good.
are an LLC. We don't do specific events. We do individual tours. We do have them sign the liability release.
Good.
And the first thing that's on the top of that is the Florida State statute
Yep.
that they have to sign. But
But it is hard to.
Can't help with the house insurance.
It is hard to, if you could separate the property off from the house, that would probably make it doable. So if you could separate the operation away from your home site, so that would be something you probably need to see Holly and them about. But I think if you could separate somehow or another that from your operation, then you can get that done. But if you have problems finding an insurance company, there are some insurance companies that work through the Florida Agritourism Association that we can get you hooked up with.
Yeah, I was told years ago that I should leave a fence between my home, like where the home was and where the farming operation was, by the homeowner's insurance company, that would help. So hopefully they don't come out and take a look anytime soon.
I think we had another question.
So the question is, how do you manage this hiring volunteers and high school students?
The risk is hiring volunteers and high school students. How do you manage that?
Well, just real quick, we have a what we call like a agritourism waiver that we would have people sign if they're signing up to be a volunteer. So we just say I'm participating in an agritourism activity. When we also post that same statute on the ticketing website, we email it out to everybody with the confirmation of their registration. And we do have we try to have everyone register who's gonna come on the property, because it just gives me a level of assurance of, we don't check people's IDs, but at least you have some idea of how many people are gonna show up, who these people are, and we're opening it to the public for that day, but it's still the place where we live and make our living. And so kind of establishing that little bit heavier, like a little thicker layer of respect than just running and going crazy, which all of our guests have generally been really great. And we also decided not to offer alcohol. Like a few years ago, we just decided that just wasn't something that we wanted to do anymore, because we felt like it was a lot of extra liability, and we also weren't licensed to do so. So we're just not doing that anymore. But with employees, we are an LLC and we do have workers' comp insurance. So if you're an employee, then you're covered by that.
As far as the risk, do you mean like financial risk or liability risk or?
That's a good point. It's a liability risk.
Liability? Yeah, we have workman's comp coverage. So everybody that's an employee in our incorporation, is covered under the workman's comp. And then we have employee meetings, but a lot of my husband and my father-in-law and one of our CDL truck drivers operate the tractors. We don't let any high school students operate any of the machinery. They're strictly, taking out the garbage. They do welcome the guests and accept money and stuff like that. But I always have, I call her my right-hand woman, but she is like my assistant. She's always behind the bar with, I usually have 3 high school students working the bar, welcoming guests, accepting money. So if there's a customer that maybe has an issue or a question that they don't feel comfortable answering, I always have either me or her back there with them so that they do feel comfortable.
And I want to also circle it back to the agritourism statute sign, the assumed liability entering a farm and a working farm. You don't need to DIY that. That's fully available for purchase through the Florida Agritourism Association. I don't know if there's anywhere else to purchase them. I believe they're available on Amazon, but I have also heard that those may not be exactly what is considered legal. Mr. Hitchcock was not joking that they will measure the letters. The letters have to be like a certain height. So authorized dealer, I guess, of the signs is the Agritourism Association. Now, all coincides with having the land classification as a bona fide commercial farm through the property appraiser. I'm assuming we're all Alachua County residents, but we may have some dispersed around. So make sure that's your first layer of defense for those Florida state statutes that protect agritourism operations to kick in. And that sign posted probably more than one place on your farm upon entrance and upon where the actual operation is taking place is your first line of defense. And then there are insurance agencies that will insure agritourism. agritourism is still fairly new to insurance brokers. My experience, my homeowner's insurance is through Florida Farm Bureau, and I just had them write me up a quote through, they have special programs for agritourism. So general liability, like you mentioned, I know there's recommendations for an umbrella policy, and then there's also product insurance. So if you're selling, I know there's laws for cottage food, but just that extra protection. But just to make sure you're covered. I mean, it's a scary place, opening your doors to the general public. So that's my recommendation. Don't DIY your signs. Buy them. I think they're like $60. So.
I could not get Farm Bureau to write a policy for my
Really?
Yeah, they refused.
Huh. Yeah. I wonder, I don't know what my special circumstances were. Thank you for that,
So it
letting
was
me know.
tricky, because we had, it was for the kitchen, because the kitchen, agritourism, and we were actually selling product. It was like, there were too many things going on, and they were like, this is too complicated.
Mine was very basic. I went for just like a UPIC, and here's my deal, and they wrote me one or quoted me one, and so I haven't taken it any further than that. So there's some out there that will do it, but talk to your brokers and I think sometimes they just want to really know what's going on. And I think we have another question, 2, 3.
I want to say on the insurance, like Farm Bureau is very hit or miss, and
Yeah.
sometimes not every Farm Bureau, some Farm Bureau agents only represent Farm Bureau insurance.
Yeah.
And some Farm Bureau agents represent a number of carriers, so you can find one that does that and then shop around. Like my Farm Bureau agent has a number of carriers, and so ours is through our Farm Bureau agent,
Yeah.
but it's not Farm Bureau insurance. You can sometimes find what you need.
Yeah, that's why we're all here. I think sharing what works, what doesn't work, and who's talking to who. And another question? Yes.
Do you operate, do you get a special license for DPPR for your food operation and your bar operation? Or is it,
Oh, yes.
is there some exemption to Agritourism?
No, so my building, because it's not a residential structure, the building itself I applied for a permit exemption for the structure because it's a farm accessory structure and it's not a dwelling. We did build it to code, but it did not require an inspection or a permit. We are a permitted food establishment and inspected by FDACS. So yes, we did have to have a commercial kitchen inspection in order to sell food out of the location. And there was a lot of red tape around what type of septic system, public use water, having our well regulated, because we already had our well regulated and tested because for our crop usage, and also because we provide it to our staff and things like that. But we were already testing our well water quarterly, but that was required as part of the process. DBPR, it depends on what you're doing, whether you're going to be regulated by FDACS or DBPR. So our specific kitchen is regulated by FDACS.
Same thing with the bar?
I'm sorry?
With the bar operation?
If it is alcohol, it does, I think, go to DBPR. Yeah.
Amy and Noah, you both mentioned this, trying to hang on to your land. What are the forces you feel, regardless if it's physical or psychological forces that you feel trying to take your land? Like, is it making enough profit to pay all your bills, to take care of your family? Is there specific things that are happening just with property owners, like taxes keep rising on the property? What are those things that are really trying to take your land?
So yeah, I mean, to me, it's just mostly financial questions, and a lot of it just comes down to all the costs it takes to own and maintain land. I mean, we're only on 28 acres, but it came with a big house, which we weren't necessarily looking for, but the land matched what we were looking for, and it was not, it was not a cheap purchase. Just the purchase itself. The property taxes are crazy high, and the cost of utilities are high, and the cost of to feed the animals. I mean, I didn't even really describe all the things that we do, I guess, farming wise, but we have like a little micro dairy. We have we do beef also from the cows. We have pigs on the land. We have like 400 laying hens. We grow vegetables. We grow flowers. We produce a lot of different things, and all of that has its inputs. Just maintaining the property itself requires tons of time and energy and fuel, and so then that means that either you need people to hire people, which I feel like the cost of labor has gone up insanely in the last since COVID basically, and everybody comes, all these like high school graduates are coming in asking for more an hour than I ever have paid myself to do any of it. So I'm like, oh my God, this is we're in a different world that way. And then there's hardly anybody that's even trained in what we do. Like it's a very specialized thing to like either care for animals or to care for vegetables. So then it's a real challenge just to find people that are, we had a really wonderful apprenticeship program for 10 years that was really like helpful in all that, because it kind of matched well. Like most people would come to the farm with very little experience, and now they're still coming to the farm even if we're hiring for like a managerial position with basically the same level of experience as the folks were coming to for an apprenticeship. And it's like we're just spending all of our time like with training, and then basically we were coming to the conclusion of like, well, we should just do that ourselves. And so I don't know, there's all those things I feel like they bring challenges, and I think that the price of food is, if you're producing food as a farmer, is even though it might be high in the grocery store, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can produce it cheaply, or like cheap enough to make a living from it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's, yeah.
I would say that for us, honestly, right now we are able to sustain our livelihood and sustain livelihoods for, we have right now about 35 employees, including ourselves. So we do pay ourselves from the farm, but we're in year, I think, 14 of operation. So it took a lot of years to get there. We did not do that in the beginning. We didn't pay ourselves for the first many years, and we still have not pulled out all of the money that we invested to create the operation that we have now. The land itself, when my daughter, who's 10 now, when she's 30, will have hopefully paid off the mortgage, for everything. So I would say, honestly, for us, mainly because we have the responsibility currently of sustaining livelihoods for a lot of people. That's really more of the financial stressor right now, that we have employees, and we're able to use this amazing resource of having land accessible to us to generate employment, generate food, but it comes with a lot of work and a lot of stress at times. But in terms of just holding on to the land, that's why we're hoping to do the ag easement program to kind of help us maybe either pay off some of the debts or be able to improve the property in different ways. And we want it to stay in farming, so that will help with that process. But I mean, as of right now, we're able to make the payments on the property, and we're able to pay our utility bill, and we have plenty of food. There's not a lot of cash, there's not extra cash left over at the end, but it's working. We're generally solvent. So I guess that's a success story in farming, right?
That brings up a point that most people that are in agritourism, they have another job because it is very difficult. And I did want to mention to you, the people, I mean, it bothered some of my family because they didn't grow up the way I did, because I grew up working in a grocery store and I had to work every weekend and nights and weekends, so I was used to it. But if you're not willing to work nights and weekends, then something you might want to get away from. And the point about the conservation easement, if you don't want to see your land developed, and a lot of people, that's their 401k. I mean, that's their retirement plan. So it is a way to take some of that money out to put aside for yourself as you get where you maybe can't work the land and put it into, you know, an investment or something to have when you get older. So that's the program that the county, I actually did a conservation easement on my property, and I sold basically all the development rights, and it'll never be developed. So it'll be that way forever, because I didn't want to see that. And all the things that we're doing, it might look like we're rolling in the bucks, but we're really just sustaining ourselves. And that was a way of me taking some of the value out of the land and put it into something, because I knew I never would get a return on my investment, basically. It's just hard. That's why agritourism works. It kind of makes it sustainable.
The property owners, the only way realistically it seems to be able to get ahead is by selling their property.
Yeah.
They make a profit off it.
And we don't.
And we can't do that. Right, exactly.
Well, thank you. I think that wraps up our panel, and I appreciate your time.